get straight into it, and I'm going to just rapid fire a few questions to get started, just so that we can set the tone. Pretty much first question, why did you get into physio?
That's actually a funny one. So I originally wanted to be a doctor. So back when I was in year 10, I was going to be a chippy. And then I came home one day after listening to a science lesson, and for the first time in my life, I was pretty much a drop kick for the first few years of high school. And then year 10, I listened to one lesson about Dolly the sheep, and I was like, wow, this science stuff's actually really cool. I came home and told my dad that I wanted to be a doctor. He said, yeah, right. And I said, right, I'm going to prove him wrong. And then started pre-medicine, decided that the type of health that whole, I guess, realm was going to provide wasn't for me. And then made my way into exercise science and thought, you know what, I like movement as a form of therapy. And then built on that to become a physio, and like took exercise science and my prescription into physio, and then finished that. And then I was like, right, let's fix some people with helping them get strong. That's
sick. Cool. So why strong? Why do you care about strength?
I think the majority of and I know that Dr. Peter, actually I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yes.
He does summarize how medicine is at the moment, how the medical world is in and around that. We're very intervention based. We're very much, we'll look at the problem once it gets there, once the problem is formed, as opposed to, right, why is the problem there in the first place? So let's
management over prevention.
100%. And like let's take arthritis, for example, just in general. What at its core is arthritis is wear and tear on the muscles and bones, right? Oh, sorry, not the muscles, just the bones, and like the hyaline cartilage, and like we know that it wears away over time. Now, as much as we are humans that do wear away because gravity is hard,
heavy.
How do we prevent that? And we know that the one thing that we can do to take the load off the joints is to get really strong. So why aren't we doing that early? Why is that not frontline care, is to get people strong? Yeah.
And we know there's so much science now on it, and it 100%. Has been for years. But I think people think that they train and then they'll get too bulky. They don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Tell me more.
I just genuinely think that the whole conception around strength training has been marginalized by media. Like you see the people that are, I guess, representing strength training are people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or people that are big, people that are doing the people that are going to the gym. People then translate that as they're the bodybuilders, they're the people that are going to compete in these competitions, whereas
and gyms are formed around those people
100% until people potentially get an injury, and then they get educated around, right, well, you can actually just get strong. Strength doesn't have to mean you get massive muscles. Increasing your strength doesn't even necessarily mean that the size of the muscle gets bigger straight away. Like you actually just get better at recruiting the muscle you already have. Like there's so much science around why strength should be where we shift our healthcare, but I think it doesn't help that people have these conceptions about, I want to get toned, I don't want to get too big. Where it's like
associated with aesthetics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Associated with health and feeling good.
Or feeling, for sure.
But I think it's definitely changing, for sure. So like if you could sort of break down for layman terms how strength training actually impacts osteoarthritis, would be really helpful.
Absolutely. So like even if we just like quote the RSCGP guidelines that GPs should be following from 2018, we know that things like even surgery, like arthroscopies, they're not frontline care anymore. That's only if they're getting proper locking of their knees and hips. Whereas the only thing that had the stronger evidence, and it was moderate to strong evidence, was land-based exercise. Right? So, and the whole reason around why that works is because your like the balance of muscular forces from things like your big old thigh and quad muscles and your hamstrings and the calves, they help provide support to the joint itself, because the joint isn't supposed to take all of the load.
No, but how does it? Like, why do people get so much OA when the joint's taking all the load?
Well, I mean, you've got to take into account other factors, things like overweight. Like if you are like larger than what, like the whole reason BMI was invented in the first place was also a classification for whether you were overweight, obese, or overly obese, or like in the normal categories, because not only is that significantly impacting things like forming diabetes or like cancer risk, but it's also, if you have more weight, more force goes through the joints of your body. It's simple physics for that one.
Yeah. And then so strengthening up your muscles that pull on these joints in a correct balance would mean that the joint can handle more load.
Absolutely, yeah.
Longer.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And not only would strength training help your joints get better at taking load, it would also help your bones become more dense.
How does it do that?
So when you load a bone, Wolff's Law says that you will respond to that loading, and essentially the whole process of laying down new bone will load in response. It will grow in response to loading. So if I all of a sudden start loading, let's say 20 kilos on a squat, and I do that in a safe and controlled manner and progress that slowly, my muscles will get stronger naturally, and that's kind of measured by the output of obviously me going further in strength training. But then you will also, your bones will become stronger. They will lay down new bone. You encourage more bone to be laid down if you do participate in strength training.
Yeah, no, and the evidence is endless. Like, we know these things, but I guess like if I was new to strength training and I didn't want to go to a gym, which a lot of new physio clients don't, and they couldn't think of anything worse, how could you get started with strength training?
Well, I think that just comes down to like the whole world's perspective on what strength training is. So I know we've spoken and we've mentioned people like Arnold Schwarzenegger or bodybuilding, but like in general, strength training is such a wide variety of things. Like strength training is just literally you're training muscles to build up your strength. Now that can be things like just body weight exercises. That can be same for like anyone in like the 70 and over age group, people doing sit to stands at home. You're training those muscles to get better at doing something that you already do.
Yeah, exactly.
You can essentially do the same task that you do in repetition. And that is a form of strength training.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like overcoming a resistance, right? On repeat. And I guess like another good one to understand it is you take a muscle or the area to fatigue where it gets tired, you have a break and you do it again on repeat. So like, I guess, how could they get started? Is body weight kind of a nice entry point, or is it something like going for a walk? Or
well, it really depends. Like where your capacity is. If you find that walking 100 meters is too much for you, then that's fine. Let's break that up into sizable chunks that you can handle.
Cool.
So we know, like, let's go back to the basics of just exercise prescription, progressive overload. Right, we just need to make sure that you're doing just outside the capacity of what you could do, so that the next time that you respond to that same thing, it's a little bit easier. And every time it gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And then once that plateaus, that's when you move on. Now, that looks different for everyone. For you and me, it might be squatting 100 kilos at the gym. For someone else, it might just be handling their own body weight. And that's fine. You don't have to go straight to weights. You don't have to go to weights at all if you don't want. There's other ways you can progressively overload. It's not even necessarily increasing the weight. You could be doing the same thing for longer. And then you're thinking of like more endurance. Or you could do the same thing faster. And now we're going to like power. Like, it's such a wide, diverse range of things that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. What if someone doesn't want to do like basic squats or something like that? Can they do like dance or skating and things like that? Is that strength training?
Well, I guess you can break it. Like, let's break a task down. So if you're skating, for instance, let's say you're roller derby. I think we've been doing a few of those lately. Let's say that you're doing a roller derby. At some point during that roller derby, you're on one foot.
Yes.
So that means you need to have single leg balance. Now, we can break that task down into, right, if I'm balancing on one leg, I can focus on doing one leg exercises, so I'm stronger in that position.
Yeah, cool.
So I think you can look at strength training as less as like, all right, I'm going to get good at pull-ups, or I'm going to get good at squats, or I'm going to get good at pressing overhead. Think, right, well, I want to get better at home maintenance. I want to get strong enough to hold up this piece of plywood while I'm nailing it in.
100%,
cool. Let's then break down that movement of lifting something up.
So you get
overhead.
Stronger for what you want to do.
Correct. Yeah. To take your own goal and break that down into small chunks. And then those small chunks is where strength training can come in. It doesn't have to be whole task practice.
That kind of what you do as a physio compared to, say, the average person that's just treating pain, or?
Yeah, well, I would like to think so. In general, when someone comes in, the first thing that I ask them, and it's one of the pillars of how we treat, is we make sure that, one, their expectations are being met, and two, there's clear goals set out. And for some people, that goal is just taking the pain away. And that is fine. I'm obviously going to try and help them expand on that, but for some people that is all they need. But then for others, they're like, I want to be able to lift my kid up again. Every time I lift my kid up, my shoulder hurts. And that's when it becomes, all right, we need to break down that movement. Like, you obviously need to be able to squat down to pick your kid up. So do you get any knee pain? And then it's breaking down each one of those movements and strengthening so that we can actually achieve a tangible task like that for someone.
And build someone's capacity way more than they need.
Yeah.
So then, like, if they lift the kid 10 times, they haven't just prepped for 1 or 2 lifts
100%.
for the day. They
You'd
can actually
rather be
lift
over-prepared. Yeah.
100%. So it's all about capacity, strength. It's pretty cool. So I guess, like, that's what, like, I love about by design is that we actually, like, break down patterns really well, and we can sort of look at lifting as a squat, a bent over row, and then like a carry, and then you just prep those things for that person. And because they feel better faster, they're likely to reinvest in their time and get stronger in other areas as well because they've seen the potential.
Yeah, I think something that we do really well is that we highlight the benefit of delayed gratification, and we show that as much as sometimes things don't get fixed very quickly, you can have some things taken away. So things like pain. We obviously have methods as physios to help with pain relief, but then you get someone coming back the next week and saying, well, we did the dry needling and the pain's come back. And I'm like, okay, but did you do the exercises? And that's when I feel like the difference between us and other physios is that rather than us just treating and just dealing with the rollover of each week and we coming back and we maybe make some slow changes, I feel like we really try to enforce behavioral change. And they're like, right, we educate you to know so that you understand it's not just going to happen overnight. Like you need to work on your own strength. You need to be able to maintain this yourself, which, but then that doesn't mean I'm just going to give you 100 squats because then you're not likely to do them. Yeah. Like it's right. What works for you? I'm lowering your barrier to entry so that you can feel like you want to do it.
Yeah. And is that how you feel that you get people to do their homework better?
Yeah. Look, I sucked at doing my own homework when I was a physio patient. True. And like when I haven't, prior to like obviously me doing it myself and us treating each other, I haven't done my physio homework because they didn't really listen to what I wanted. Yeah, it was, right, your shoulder's sore. Yeah. Why don't you just do some banded external rotations?
Oh, that's a good
And I was like, right, well, I'm studying at the moment, or I need to press overhead. How is this really going to help me? And I feel like there was no bridge.
So it was just pathology.
It was just pathology based. And like, as much as that is a way to treat, the patient satisfaction is horrific. Like it's not helpful.
Well, it's not. They're not going to adhere to anything if they can't find the relevance.
Exactly, and I think it's very important that like if someone comes in and says it hurts when I do this, ask them how important that is to them. Yeah. If getting that particular movement is really important to them, strengthen the crap out of that movement. Yeah. Do it safely.
Or teach a new pattern on how to do it better.
Exactly, and like it's just making it as specific to that person as possible. Yeah. And I know that like it's such a word that gets thrown out as a buzzword on every website. It's we're patient centered, we're patient centric, we're outcome based. But like I truly believe everyone says that, but then it's taking away our own agenda and our own ego and just going, what do you want to get better at? Yeah. Cool. Let's just do it. Let's just do our best. Yeah. And just change everything around that. And I know that we do it as well, and that like we'll plan before our sessions in what we want this to be, and we could look at it like tunnel vision and do this. However, when someone comes in and is like, look, mate, I actually just want to get better at this week, we just go, cool. Yeah. Ditch all that. Ditches. And let's just focus on that.
I think that's the most beneficial thing we can do for a therapist for the person. Yeah. Like,